Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of my College Timeline series, How I Got In. I'm your host Karina and today we'll be talking about one student's journey to the University of Maryland. With us today is Rob Galligan. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Thank you for joining us. Now tell us a little about yourself. Who is Rob?
Okay, well, my name is Rob Galligan. I'm currently a redshirt junior at the University of Maryland. So basically what that means is that I'm an academic senior, but a baseball junior. I redshirted my freshman year. I sat out my freshman year to have another year on the back end. I'm planning to graduate in May with a degree in economics and hopefully go to grad school next year. Again, I'm in the same process. So I'm in the process of applying to grad school right now. Kind of the same process you guys are in right now, but a little more in depth. And the grad school is a little bit crazy, but going through that right now. And then, of course, in the season baseball right now. And this is my fourth year in baseball, and then just getting ready to go and right in the middle of the season. And that's it. Just happy to be here. Anything I can do to help, I'm happy.
Great, great. Now let's go back all the way to high school. That's what, 5 years ago. What kind of academics were you looking at?
Basically, I went to a small school in Oyster Bay, Long Island. It's called St. Dominic High School. There's only 420 kids, 450 kids in my whole school, about 90, 95 in my grade. So I don't know how a lot of other students are, but my experience in high school is a lot different. There's a lot more connection with my teachers, and obviously the transition from going to a school of 420 students to a school of 35,000, it's a lot different. But in high school, basically the biggest class I was in was 30 students. I took the generic history, sciences, chemistry, earth science, physics, all that stuff, and then math. I took algebra, geometry, trig, pre-calc, and I guess AP Calc as well. I took a couple AP courses. I took AP History, AP Calc, and right now I think there might be one other one. AP Literature, I think that was the other one I took.
There's always one you forget. I always forget them. I try to go through my mind. I'm like, hey, I took this class, and I always forget one. And I never thought I'd forget them, but apparently I'm a junior in college now, and I'm forgetting the classes I took in high school, and that's kind of scary.
But yeah, and that was really, from what I remember right now, I think that's what it is for me. And definitely that transition was good because I was able to learn the kind of stuff that was forced upon me in high school. It made that transition easier. So I encourage students, if they have the opportunity to take an AP course, not only for the credits. The credits are great. It helps a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my teammates, a lot of my classmates. It helped them, but also just having the experience of those AP courses. Because I know that with my AP Calculus book, that notebook that I had in high school, I took it to college. And my first semester, I had Calculus 1, and it was the same exact course, not in the same exact order, but my high school notebook is what I use for notes rather than my professor's notes, because it just proves to you how helpful it is and how it definitely helps you bridge the gap. And it was really easy for me to transition from high school to college just with an AP course. That's why I always encourage students to take an AP course as much as you can. And obviously the credits are great. It saves your parents some money.
No, for real. And I love how you said that. I thought I was probably the only one that kept their notebooks from high school, but I did that for AP Microeconomics. And I sat down and as great as my professor was in college for macroeconomics, there was a lot of microeconomic principles, and I had a great teacher in high school, and I still had my notes, and they were really great too, and it actually helped me a lot in my exam, and I several of my friends would just laugh at me, and I'm like, just you wait when I get a good grade, and you're all crying. Who's laughing then?
Absolutely.
How early did you start taking AP classes?
I believe I took one AP class my junior year, and I took 3 AP classes my senior year. But
okay, so
5.
So in the private schools, I've seen a lot of the private schools have a trend where they typically have students start taking AP classes their junior year.
Yes.
Okay, and do you find that was helpful for you? It gave you 2 years to kind of see who you are in high school, because it is a big adjustment going from middle school to high school. You have an increased amount of responsibilities. You have other factors besides your schoolwork, but now you have extracurriculars. You have getting leadership positions in different clubs, and all of a sudden you have to be at certain meetings during lunch or after school. So there's so many different factors, and freshman year can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like even for me, I mean, I went to St. Dominic Elementary School, so there was only 30 kids in my eighth grade class. And then even going to a school my freshman year with 120 students. I mean, that was a big transition for me, and that was only what a 90 student difference. And I like just going from different environments. It's overwhelming. It's tough, but I mean, I just think that like staying patient and just trusting the process, just knowing that you're not the first and you're not the last person to ever go through this, and just try to stay patient and just absorb as much as you can the time you have. And don't take it for granted because it definitely goes by pretty quick.
For sure. Like, even college goes by quick. I just realized I
Yeah.
have 6 classes left till I finish my degree, and I'm like, can I restart, please?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
scary. um, I kind of went through a similar situation where my middle school was really tiny. I think there was 60 kids in the 8th grade, and then I went to high school with 3,000 students total. And it's a huge jump,
Yeah.
and you kind of went through that jump from high school to college, and I can't imagine. Like, I was used to a big class setting where my teachers knew me, but they weren't going to be like, it wasn't a personal, small classroom environment all the time. Did you find
Absolutely.
that, is it a bigger adjustment going from that small classroom environment to that huge classroom environment with a lecture hall of like 300 kids?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's pros and cons to every environment, and I'm a big believer in that. And I think that every environment, every situation you're in, as good or as bad as it seems, there's always people in worse situations, and there's always people in better situations. So, like for example, my AP Calculus, my senior year, there's 6 students in the class. I mean, it doesn't really get like more personal than that. So obviously, we had a good relationship with the teacher, and he kind of like worked around the process according to where we were at. But in college, it's different. I mean, my Calculus 1 class, obviously I go to University of Maryland, so it's a little bit bigger. I took Math 220, and it was Calc 1, and there was 250 or 300 kids in that class, in that lecture hall. And obviously, in something like that, it's a teacher that is new because usually they get the new teachers to those elementary courses, and they're not specialized in that situation, and it's a lot tougher. And I think that once you realize that, like people take for granted how good high school teachers are because they are very personal and they help you out no matter what and take you step by step throughout the process. And college is a little bit different, and college is a little bit tougher. It was definitely a big adjustment period for me because I had to learn to like, find a way to succeed with the resources that I have around me at the University of Maryland, but also the tools and steps that I was taught in high school, and that gave me the opportunities to succeed in college. So all the different study guides and like the step-by-step processes that my teachers taught me in high school gave me the best opportunity to succeed in college. And obviously, in a big lecture hall like that, it's not just one teacher. So you have TAs, and those TAs you're broken up. So let's say I'm going to use Calculus 1 for example. So that met on Monday and Wednesday for 50 minutes. And then on Friday, you'd have a discussion, but it's not 250 people in that discussion, it's only 25 or 30. And they have those discussions throughout the day. That's the opportunity to like work in smaller things, and you get that high school feel to it. And that's how it is for most of the basic courses and most of the courses you take your freshman and sophomore year. And then once you declare your major, and then once you move up the ladder and throughout the process, obviously it gets smaller and smaller. But that's kind of how it is in regards to college. But I think that just knowing that is really helpful, because if you don't know that and you don't understand how it is, then it can definitely be overwhelming and it's something different. But just being able to adjust and being able to relate and being able to talk and speak up and not being afraid to go up to the professor after class or going up to the TA after class and speaking with them and saying, hey, I need some help with something. I'm struggling with one of these theories. Can you help me out? And I mean, you'd be surprised. They're more than willing to help you out. And at the end of the semester, if you have an 87, you might get that B plus, that A minus at the end because you were there asking questions or every lecture and stuff like that. It really helps out and goes a long way, and teachers definitely recognize it.
No, fact, that is true. I had one class last semester where I was on the verge of B plus actually, I don't even know how this happened. I was for sure thought I had a B plus, and the professor knew I came to class every day. I worked hard. I was always asking questions. I was participating in discussions going on during the class, and it was evident that like in my group project, I had a huge role in that. And when it came down to the end of the semester, I did well in the final somehow, and I was on that verge of an A minus A, and he actually bumped me up to an A, and I was just like, thank you. But it does count, and I think gaining that confidence through high school is going to help you in the long run in college, because if you're not afraid to ask questions, you're not afraid to ask help, you're going to need that in college anyways, and it's just a crucial thing to develop. So speaking of overwhelming, let's talk about the SAT and the ACT. How did you prepare for that? When did you start preparing for it? When did you take it?
All right. Well, I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about this because throughout my life I've been like really, really, really competitive. So I've always kind of wanted to outperform everyone and do better than everyone else. So I started younger because I wanted to get as high score as possible, just so I could have the opportunity to go to the different schools and the best places I can go. So I kind of started when I started getting recruited. Obviously, everyone's situation is different, but I started getting recruited my freshman and sophomore year of high school, and I started preparing for the ACT and SAT in my sophomore year of high school. Obviously, that's a lot different, but I just wanted to have a leg up, and I wanted to give the college coaches just like kind of a baseline of where I'm at and where I need to go to get the best opportunity to get placed into a school and have the opportunity to go to a program wherever that may be. So I started pretty young. I took my first one. SAT was tough for me. So basically I took an SAT and an ACT, I believe in September of my junior year, and ACT was just a test for me. I mean, everyone's different, but it basically was just like 4 sprints, basically, from what I remember. But the SAT was not like that. It was like a marathon. I think I like fell asleep during one of the sections. Like it just wasn't for me. But the ACT is kind of just like was my niche. And again, I'm way different than everyone else, so I took it like more than 5 times because I just wanted to do better every single time, and I'm really competitive. So I took it a bunch of times, and because I just wanted to get a higher score. So I started pretty early, and then I took my last one, I believe, October of my senior year. So I took my first one in September of my junior year and last one in October of my senior year.
So you must have been pretty good at it by the end of that.
Yeah, but I mean, by the end of it, it's a code. I think that's the biggest thing for ACT at least. I can't really speak for the SAT because I didn't really do that much, but it's just kind of a code, and there's different resources around to kind of help you. I had a few different tutors that were set up for me through high school and some friends, so I was able to utilize those resources to the best of my ability and just kind of figure out like how to crack the code. And that's what the ACT is all about. And they repeat all the same mistakes. They repeat their stuff. So if you get a book or you're fortunate enough to get a tutor, I mean, all of those things help. And if you just do your work and trust the process and stay positive, then it's easy to succeed because, again, it's just a code and just got to crack it, find a way to crack it, and it's pretty easy and you can do well in the SAT or ACT if you figure that out.
No, I was the same way. The SAT was not my test. I went with the ACT, and I think it's important if you start early. I like how you started earlier in your junior year because then you can kind of identify, what test do I need to focus on instead of wasting your time studying for both exams. You're just like, okay, I just have this one. It's expensive to focus on both exams, but some people do well on both and just, see whatever they do highest on and they take that score. And if that's for you, good for you, because I couldn't do that.
For sure.
Now, one of the key things that differentiates one student from another student in a college admissions aspect is extracurriculars. You can have one student with a 4.0 GPA and another student with maybe like a 3.7 and all these leadership activities and a bunch of other extracurriculars, and that looks so much better. What were some of the extracurriculars that you did during high school?
I think one of my biggest regrets was that my freshman year, basically we had like homeroom, I believe. And basically like homeroom was like you pick a representative or 2 from every homeroom, and you were part of like student government. And I was really intimidated my freshman year, so I never rose my hand. So I never got that opportunity to do that. And then once I like realized the benefit of student government, I like went into it sophomore year and applied for a position. And I applied, I believe, for secretary or treasurer, I don't remember. And me and the person I was going against, 51-49. But since like it was just such like a tight race that they made like a separate position for me because they like saw that I would be a benefit to the exec board. So I was able to get on the board, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I was able to figure things out, learn from the people above me, and then my junior year I became vice president, and then my senior year I was fortunate enough to be the president of my high school, which was kind of cool. And then I was in different clubs like math club. Oh my God, this is like a speech and debate. What was it called? Oh my God. I was in Model UN too. Model UN was one of the coolest experiences ever. I was able to go to our school was able to go to Princeton and Cornell my 2 years that I was a part of it, and then I was in a lot of other clubs like this theology club, and I was also I was able to be my junior year to be a Eucharistic minister because I went to a Catholic school, and basically the Eucharistic minister is that it's a big part of the Christian faith, and obviously it's tough because you have to stay unbiased throughout the process. But it added another element to me because I went to Catholic school, so I thought that was important. And then that was pretty much it. Those are my few big ones. And basically, I took a lot of pride in student government, and I kind of wanted to redefine my high school, and I saw things that I didn't really like in high school, and I wanted to change it and change it there by the time I became president. And fortunate enough, same thing happened to me in college. Obviously, this isn't the question, but same thing happened to me in college. We have this thing. I'm a student athlete at Maryland, and we have this thing called the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. It's basically a student government, but for student athletes. And my freshman year, again, I was scared. I didn't want to raise my hand. And then sophomore year, kind of same thing. And then last year, as a junior, I raised my hand and I said I wanted to be a member, and I was a member, and I kind of just hit the ground running. And I knew kind of the stuff the tools that from high school. Obviously, it took me a while to knock some rust off. And then after that, I applied to be a vice president last year, and I was fortunate enough to get the job as the vice president and focusing on business relations. And then next year, I have a fifth year available, and I'm applying for the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee for University of Maryland. And again, it's just like the same thing. It's stuff that I learned in high school that gave me the opportunity to succeed in college, and I tell that story for that exact reason, that I have the opportunity to become the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee at the University of Maryland because of the things that I learned in high school.
So you did all that through high school and in college, juggling baseball teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, again, I was fortunate enough to play baseball at St. Dom's in high school. About midway through my freshman year, I got pulled up to varsity. Didn't really play much on varsity my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I got some starts. We won the championship, and then I started getting recruited pretty heavily. Sophomore year and then junior year, kind of same thing. And then right for a playoff game before one of my starts, I got hurt, and just kind of everything just disappeared. And that's kind of why I'm here, is because you have the opportunity of two routes when that stuff happens. You can either shut down, or you can just kind of see what happens. And I was hurt. Everything vanished, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do. So I had nothing. So I started beginning the process like a regular student, like everyone else did. And I started applying to schools. That's when I bumped up my SATs, my ACTs, and really started preparing to give myself the best opportunity to succeed and apply to schools without baseball, because that wasn't what I was going for. I was applying like a regular student. And then right before signing day, my senior year, the coach from Maryland asked me to come down for a visit, and I went down. I loved it, and kind of committed the next day, and then signed a week later. So it was kind of cool. It was a cool story.
So were you applying to the University of Maryland beforehand? Was that a school that was on your radar before the coach approached you, or did that just kind of be like an out of the blue opportunity?
Well, I mean, like I was fortunate enough, like my grades in high school gave me the opportunity to explore the higher academic baseball schools. So I mean, it's kind of cool. Like my first college visit, my first recruiting trip was at Stanford. I went to Princeton, and and then I also went to different schools like Notre Dame, Duke, um, Louisville. I mean, different state schools. And then my junior year, I went to Maryland, and it was funny because I just had my heart set on another school. And I went to Maryland for the first time my junior year, and I hated it. I wanted nothing to do with it. And my mom just said, like, Rob, stick around. Like, we'll see what happens. And then that night, it was like a Wednesday night, I think. And the coach brought us to the basketball game, and the basketball game ended up playing Duke, and we beat Duke. Duke was the number two team in the country. We beat Duke for the ACC title. Like, stormed the court, and I like turned to my mom. I was like, all right, this place is kind of cool. And then, I mean, same thing happened, and then they asked me to come back again in October my senior year, and then I committed. I committed right then and there once I found this is the place for me.
That's really cool. I think it's really important, especially at the University of Florida, you hear a lot of people go through the tour and go, oh, this campus is ugly. Hold on here. Go tour the campus, and I think going to sporting events, going to anything really that just get involved, like get into the niche of it, feel what being a student at your school is like. And then you really get a feel for what the university is. Going down the tour, they'll give you little peeks at different things, but once you really get like a true experience of what the school is all about, and especially exciting moment when you up there Duke, who is just a basketball powerhouse, it's just like you get into the excitement and you're like, okay, like I see myself here. And I think that happens to a lot of schools. I think you need to do something beyond going on the tour or the standard visit and just get, kind of, I don't want to say engulfed, but kind of just get into it with the other students.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really important. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from like orientation groups or tours, but I mean, it's really tough. I mean, they're just so limited because of time, resources, money availability. So it's unfortunate that that's kind of part of it, and you only get to see certain things. So I mean, for everyone that's kind of looking at schools, if you have someone or know anyone that is at the school, I would do the tours, and then also I would try to see that person and reach out to that person and try to have them give you another tour. And you'll be able to see different things that you never thought of. And it's just tough. You get kind of cornered into one part of the school that the orientation group or that tour guide gave you, but it's not a true representation of the actual school. And it happens all the time. I mean, friends from Long Island that come up, they do a tour, and then they're like, hey, like, Rob, I completely forgot, like, you're here. And they come down a couple of weeks or a couple months later, and then I give them a tour, like, oh my God, this is what I remember, like, this isn't what they did. I'm like, yeah, obviously it's not what they did because they can't do it. It's tough. So, I mean, just try not to just get tunnel vision and just have an open eyes and maybe wander off during lunchtime and have some fun and just try to see whatever you can see and enjoy the process and enjoy the opportunities given to you because it's a once-in-a-lifetime process. And rather than taking it as a negative and feeling bogged down by it, enjoy it and embrace it and have some fun with it because it's a fun process.
I had fun with it. I started really early. I liked going to tour different universities. I mean, obviously it's different when you're being recruited for a sport. But in regards to academics, how important do you think it is as an athlete to have like not necessarily the exact, but the appropriate academic, like your GPA, your SAT, or ACT that matches the university you're looking at or you're about to be committed to?
I mean, well, obviously you have to have certain requirements and guidelines on the athletic side of it, so you're not really in the conversation unless you have that kind of bottom number. And I don't really know what the bottom number is. That number varies depending on schools. So I don't really want to get into that because it's not really fair to kind of put numbers to it. But in regards to that, I would just say try to like strive to do your best and wherever it falls, and just I think that if you don't have the extracurricular activities, you kind of get stuck into a pile of just everyone else. So, I mean, I'm kind of going through the same thing for grad school right now. So I'm going through the same process as everyone else that may be watching this video right now, is that how can I separate myself from everyone? How can my resume differentiate from another person's resume? So just try to set aside that and just try to work as hard as you can for your SAT and ACT. You can only get one shot at it, and if you can't do it over. Obviously, you can transfer once you get to school, but it's tough. And then in regards to GPA, the NCAA requirements vary depending on D1, D2, D3. And again, I don't know what that is, and because I've never really even wanted to think about that, so I try to stay away from that number as far as possible because I want to stay on the field. So it's a little bit tougher for me to say, but I just always try to do it as best I can. If the good thing about Maryland is that obviously as a student athlete, we have resources here to help student athletes succeed on and off the field. So we have academic facilities for student athletes and tutors and study hall mandatory for freshmen, and then you don't get out of study hall until you place out of it. So that's kind of the way it is here. I don't know how it is for other schools, but we're really fortunate to have these opportunities here to give students the best opportunity to succeed. And it helps students have the best GPA and really stay on the field, because you can't be on the field if you have a bad GPA, because I don't know how other places are, but my coach will be the first one to take you off the field and suspend you if your GPA is not good enough. And because academics first, I mean, you're a student athlete, and that's what student comes first. So
I completely agree. I mean, obviously, I'm on the equestrian team here, and it's club level, but there's still that huge struggle of you've got a dedication to your team and practicing and putting the effort in to be a competitive, not only competitive member on your team, but for your team. But you also have to make sure that your grades are on par as well, because mom and dad are paying for this, unless you're graced with a wonderful scholarship. But you still got to maintain the right grades for that, because those go away too. Now, if you could describe the University of Maryland in 10 seconds, how would you describe it?
Well, I mean, we take pride, Maryland pride. Pride, passionate, responsible, innovative, determined, and excellent. We love the flag, and we love the state of Maryland, and we have Maryland pride, and we do that in every way we can. I mean, we're the Oregon of the East Coast, so it's kind of cool to be part of that.
Yeah, you gotta love school pride. Now, if there's one restaurant that a prospective student has to go and visit, where should they go?
I mean, that's kind of tough, but there's a lot of dive places here. Obviously, you have the Chipotle here, which is huge. I mean, it's like the second grossing Chipotle in the country, which is ridiculous. The place is always packed. Then you have like the Chinese restaurants, like this place called Kyoko. It's crazy, and there's a couple places called Bentley's and Cornerstone. Man, really, anywhere you go, you're gonna find something different. There's a lot of pizza places, some Chinese food. I mean, everywhere you go, you're gonna find something good. And there's a few bar and grills and stuff like that. So wherever you go on Route 1, you'll find something for sure.
Yeah, food's important. Especially for the guys. Like, when I was like touring with my brother, he was just like, every 2 hours he's getting hungry, like, we gotta feed Joey. Someone has to take care of this. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to get your insight. And for everybody else, don't forget to check out some of our awesome other interviews with schools such as Harvard, UChicago, and MIT. You can find that in our playlist titled How I Got In. And also make sure to check out www.mycollegetimeline.com and check out our amazing website and get tons of free resources and advice about applying to college. Thanks, guys.